Welcome back to another episode of the Never Broke Nation podcast. Yay.
Ooh, yay.
Alicia. So, again, happy to be here. I'm one of your hosts, Janai Thornton. And then again this evening, we have with us.
Alicia Tillman.
You know me, Chris Hollis.
And so we had such an amazing learning experience with part one
Yes.
of bartering.
Yes.
We said, you know what?
Yeah.
We've got to do part two.
Yes.
Bring it back.
Bring it back and finish it up. So, Marlon Burns, thank you for coming back for
Yes.
part two.
I appreciate you having me back again.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So I know Chris has some burning questions over there.
I do. So I know we talked about barter exchange in our first episode. So how would I vet a barter exchange? How do you vet one?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. Some of the things you want to look for is you want to see what mix of members that they have. If they have all service-based members, chiropractors, massage therapists, if everything is service-based and not really a lot of restaurants or hotels or things that, whatever it is that you feel like you may need for your personal needs, you want to make sure that there's a good mix of that, because a good mix helps keep that ecosystem going, so that, because everything is kind of feeding on, it's reciprocal. So the better the mix is, the easier it will be to grow. Just like you would evaluate your bank, you want to find out the background of the owners, see a little bit about how long they've been in business, what is their plans, how many new members do they get a month, learn more about their transaction fees, find out what their deficit spending program policy is. How much trade do they have out versus how much they're taking in? Because what happens in a trade, to simplify that, what happens in a trade exchange sometimes is members say, I'm not taking trade right now because I can't find anything to buy. So that means enough members aren't coming in that are interesting or have interesting products or services that is making that whole river flow, so to speak. So we also have a questionnaire on our website, barterscoop.com. It's questions to ask when joining a barter exchange. If you go there, it's like 17 questions, but they'll go into detail. And the whole blog post period is a really good article to read, because it'll kind of take you into the mindset of how the barter exchanges work, the good mix of members, the things that you might want to look for when you're joining. Yeah, the questionnaire will be, I definitely would highly suggest.
And that's on Barter Scoop.
On barterscoop.com.
Okay.
It's questions, or I think it's questions to ask when joining a barter exchange.
Wow, got you. And I can just start at a barter exchange myself, right? I mean, you can just go out and start.
Yeah, you can.
Wow.
So are there differences between for newbies at this, bartering online versus locally in your community with people does it matter, like, or anything that people should pay attention to doing one versus the other?
Like what should a newbie be aware of?
Just really doing their homework and researching the individual that you're dealing with, just like you would in cash. Because a lot of times when someone's bartering something, you just want to just scrutinize the individual pretty much the same way. If someone's new and they don't have a business, you have time banks. So time banks work the same way as barter exchanges, except it's more for consumers or just everyday folks. So if somebody wants to, it could be someone who walks dogs, or we cut hair, or you just do odd and end tasks. And what they do is they collect hours. So as they collect hours, time banks.
So it's like an app or something like
timebank.org, if you look that up.
Timebanks.org.
Yeah, they'll go to a time bank, they'll find a local time bank, and they can earn hours in the time bank. So if I earn 3 hours for grooming someone in the time bank's dog, then I have 3 hours that I can spend with someone else. Still the same concept, except it works more for individuals who don't have businesses as well. So that's another place that, and also you have community exchanges as well, like swap meets or farmers markets and things like that are good places to start with, because it's all of these individuals already have that mindset, so to speak.
Right.
So the conversation might be easier,
Right.
to start with. But there's a Craigslist. There's a lot of bartering opportunities on Craigslist, and if you've dealt with someone, you just got to be diligent like you would with anything else when dealing with Craigslist.
Just to check them out. Good.
Like this really makes me look at, like I like to give stuff away a lot. You know what I mean? But now it makes me like, what can you give me? You know what I mean? For what I'm giving you.
What's the exchange?
Exactly.
Right.
Like let's exchange something instead of me. Like I have like so much wood in my house right now, y'all. This is so upset. But from wood from when I built my deck. Now I want to know who needs some wood.
You never know. You might need some electrical work, and somebody would love to have that wood or something like that. And what I would do is, if you put an ad out there, make a list of some things that you would like, because a lot of times
have an idea of what you want.
Right. You got
That's smart.
Start with the list, because what happens with bartering or trading, you have individuals that will say, I can ask somebody, say, hey, would you consider trading for that? And they were like, yeah, well, what do you got? And then now we're starting with, if you belong to a barter network, well, I have 1,000 things, or 5,000 things that I can trade you.
Yeah.
But if I only have 10 things, then it's good to have an idea. So if you list them in some sort of chronological order, then you have people respond to you that way.
And where do you list them?
If you list it on the Craigslist barter section, or if you're a part of any of your buy, sell, trade groups on Facebook or something like that, if you belong to a trade network, you would call your broker up and tell them, say, hey, I've got this wood and I want you to send it out to everybody in the network. And then you'll price it, and somebody will say, hey, I want it. They'll pay you in trade dollars through your account, and then that would be credited to you, and then you can spend it with anyone else in the network.
But what happens if I don't want trade dollars? Like I want something.
You want something?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I would advise you to look at Craigslist, Facebook, and things like that in order to be able to get something, if you wanted something immediate and something specific.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, you'd have to probably do a direct trade in that.
Gotcha.
And so for the newbies, never bartered, like Chris, thinking about what they can either do or what they have, is Craigslist or Facebook where you're suggesting people start, just for the, again, straight up novice, like I don't have a clue,
and not ready to join an exchange.
Yeah, don't want to join an exchange, just kind of want to get our feet wet.
Right. I would start with Craigslist and Facebook. Probably if I was really new, I would start with Facebook, because because if they've sold stuff on Craigslist before, then start with Craigslist. But just know that there's a lot of inherited risk when you deal with Craigslist. I mean, when you deal with anything for that matter. But at least with Facebook, you can kind of check somebody out a little bit more. Just a little bit more. And in your local community, because if you start talking to people right around you, sometimes you might find what you're looking for right there. Farmers markets, flea markets, exactly. Those people at flea markets, your different shows, gun shows, trade shows, and all that. Those people are always looking to trade. Pawn shops, go in a pawn shop and trade.
I would like to know if any of our listeners would like to trade some wood for some bundles. I need some bundles
of weave.
1B 30.
30 inches. Wow.
No, 1B 30 the color.
Okay.
Please hit me up. DM us.
I don't know.
He's like, I'm lost. I don't know what that is.
I'm just like, this is turning into a black female conversation very quickly. Let me ask you this. I have two questions. We hear what we do all day. We're accountants. And, the first thing I kind of thought about with all this stuff is, like, what are the tax implications of this? Like, what does Uncle Sam feel about this? How does Uncle Sam monetize this? Because obviously the government wants their piece of everything.
Right.
So how does that work?
They want to tax barter. Barter is taxed exactly like cash. Exactly.
What?
When you're doing barter deals, you're supposed to keep track of all of your bartering and keep record of it and pay taxes on it as if you would cash, and on anything that is profit. Now, I'm not an accountant, so they would have to get with you all to be able to determine whether that income is taxable. But they treat, if you earn money inside of a barter exchange, if I earn $10,000 in a barter exchange, that's just like me earning $10,000 cash.
But are you paying taxes on the profit? Because obviously, if you and I exchanged, right? I gave you something, you gave me something in return. It's not of equal value? You know what I mean? What part is taxable?
Well, see, inside of an exchange, that's one of the things. Like if I wanted your green juice and I gave you $100 for it,
right?
Then whatever your profit margin is on that green juice, you would be taxable.
I pay tax based on mine. Okay.
Whatever your cost is in that particular item. In a direct trade,
right,
it's a little different, and also where a lot of it goes unreported sometimes.
Right.
What are some of the disadvantages of bartering?
The disadvantages, really, there really isn't a lot of disadvantages to bartering. And I'd say, just like in cash, knowing who you're doing business with. I kind of keep going back to that, because if you know who you're doing business with, you have a list, you know what you want, and ideally that list would be tied to a bigger plan. So let's just say you got a life plan and you want 100 acres. Then all of the things that you're doing is going towards that 100 acres, because you can get anything that you can do with cash except for pay taxes. And even in tax situations, when you owe, they come take your land and other stuff. So I guess
that's so interesting, because the way you just said that, it's like a goal. Like the way we would make financial goals. You can make
bartering goals.
Bartering goals. Yeah.
That's right. And the biggest advantage of it is that we really haven't touched on is this is excess capacity. This is downtime that you're bartering. This is stuff this is wood that you ended up not using.
Right.
This isn't your prime time, your prime stuff. This is you turning excess downtime, waste,
excess
stuff
right.
into things that you can use that you would be spending cash for right now.
Right.
That's one of the key things to it as well. Wow. And that's not always the case, because like in his example, he traded 2 to 1 in order to get restaurant equipment. But for me, for us, we got twice as much value out of the out of the rafting certificates than we would have gotten if we would have just did a direct trade, or if we would have ended up selling it for cash, we would have probably have sold it at a significant discount.
That's interesting.
And took a loss.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever had any bad experiences yourself with bartering?
Yes, and it was all related to the individual. When you're doing trade deals, just like if you got a contractor to come to your house, you would sign a contract and make sure that if you gave them deposits, it's a certain protocol that you would follow in order to make sure that you had some recourse if things didn't go right.
Right.
Well, in bartering is no exception. And in the couple of instances, especially when you're doing something larger. Now, if I'm giving you this water for your watch and I see your watch works right now and you see that the water is what you expected, then maybe not on something like that. But we've done a real estate transaction that didn't go right. And a lot of it was because of trust, television personality, and, and that individual used some of those scenarios to
perceived trust.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it didn't go well. It didn't go well. So to where right now still owes us a lot, and that was a big hit.
I remember you telling us something like when you were here last about you had got like some certificates or something for something that had expired.
Oh, great point.
Yeah.
Is when you do trade for things like certificates, like in the deal with the rafting certificates, part of the negotiation was no expiration dates. No expirations, no blackouts. So anytime you're dealing with script or certificates, you want to make sure that you have no expiration or blackout dates, any of that. Now, anytime you're issuing, if you are most people listening business owners or a mix?
This can be a mix.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
If it's a business and you run whatever your business is and you want to create certificates that you can use to sell to your cash customers or trade,
Right.
you want to make sure you have an expiration
Expiration
date and,
Right.
and all of
Yeah.
those things.
Right.
So we never buy how we sell, and we never sell how we buy,
Wow.
Okay.
basically.
So what's the craziest thing you've ever bartered before?
The craziest thing. Oh, wow. Craziest thing. I don't know. We've done, when you say crazy, I mean hot air balloon rides,
Wow.
helicopter, private jet to the Bahamas
Wow.
for 14, no, not 14, 13 people, along with the fins, masks, scuba gear, all of the excursions and all of that sort of
Wow.
stuff. Braces, cars.
Oh wow.
Yeah, cars.
Races.
I
Yeah.
hope everybody's listening to
I
this
know,
because this
cars.
is so interesting.
I mean, really, it would be probably easier to say, what haven't you?
yeah.
Right.
Because I'm always thinking that way. If there's a way to trade for something,
Right.
because it's a currency, and really, the currency with bartering is creativity. The more creative you are,
Wow.
the more wealthy you are with that. So that's kind of what, that's an example would be like your wood. You might take your wood, and the holidays are coming up in a few months. How can you turn that wood, I don't know how much it is, into, you have children?
No.
Okay, well, how can you turn that wood into a nice Christmas gift for yourself or a vacation? Because somebody really wants that wood.
Yeah.
I guarantee you there's somebody that wants that wood, or something that someone has.
Right.
Yeah.
And if you can take those, or whatever that is, that item, that product or service, if you're a kid, you can babysit in exchange for, movie tickets or whatever the case may be. I mean, there's so many opportunities. So as far as taking something that you have and turning it into something else, it's going to always be somebody out there that there's always a match. There's always a match.
So what did you have to barter to get the private plane?
Right. I want to know. Tell me right now.
I'm not focused on the private plane.
Okay. That actually was part of an exchange. There was an exchange, and it was also some direct trading as well. We had never been snorkeling before, so I didn't have the fins, and so I said, you know what? When I started looking into snorkeling, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get scuba gear. I want to get the stuff that I didn't get the scuba gear, but I got the fins, the boots, and the mask, and all of that, and the dry snorkel, to make sure that if we ever did do scuba diving,
You would have.
I would have at least that stuff. So I did direct trades for I think we had some fireplace mantles that we had did some deals with, to a guy that had Columbia, they're in Ohio somewhere, and we traded the scuba gear we traded the mantles for the scuba, not the scuba, but the snorkeling mask and all of that sort of stuff.
Right.
And that stuff is expensive. I mean, that's like photography and cameras when you
Right.
start getting
It's an
that.
expensive hobby.
It's
Sure.
an expensive hobby. So that was to them. Now the school that actually is, because we went to a school. We didn't go. It wasn't a 5-star resort that we went to. We went to a small, the largest island in the Bahamas, Andros,
Okay.
but it's the least developed. So we were right on the beach.
Right.
I mean, you come out the door and it's like sand beach. I mean, it was only us.
Right.
Wow.
And it's a school, but they're a marine biology school. So they would take us out each day, and instead of just seeing things, they showed you what it was.
amazing.
Yeah, they showed you what it was. I got pictures. I'll share pictures I keep pictures of everything. So they would take you and, actually, and we got to meet the local. I mean, we had a beautiful trip, but part of their package was they fly you over and back. It was part of the package. It was like $1,500 a person or something. It wasn't a lot, $1,600 a person.
Right.
And they traded it because they needed some boat motors fixed, and they needed some advertisement to college campuses to get more colleges, because they primarily focus with college students that are coming over there to learn.
To study marine biology.
Exactly. It's called Forfar Field Station if you look it up. Forfar.
That is crazy. Fly private, stay on an island
Yeah.
that most people, I never heard of that island in the
Have
Bahamas.
a beach to yourself.
Right. No cash.
No cash.
I paid cash to drive to Fort Lauderdale, and we took some cash. We took some cash to spend while we were over there.
course.
But it's in Andros. It's not real. I mean, you had a lady, Miss what's her name? Because I bought a straw hat from her. She's I think she's like 89, and I gave her. I took a picture with her. I spent money at her store is in her house.
Right.
She has a little refrigerator where she has
I
popsicles and all that sort
Yeah.
of stuff. That was the store. It's no Walmarts or anything. I mean, we found a store and we got cold drinks and it was like ice, like
Right.
but yeah, so it wasn't other than when we went to conch shells and
Yeah.
we bought little stuff like that,
Right.
but really it wasn't
But you got over there, stayed without spending any cash.
none.
That's over bartering.
Trade.
Mind blown.
right?
And in the U.S., those types of opportunities are available everywhere. I mean, if you really probably wouldn't believe the types of businesses that participate.
How did you find that opportunity? Was that on the exchange?
Well, I'm always looking. That's another thing. If you always start looking for those, like somebody calling me up looking for a microphone and a Zoom, if you're always looking for those sorts of opportunities, you'll spot them. I mean, and when I saw it, I was like, that's pretty interesting right there. So I called. I started getting more information, seeing what was, and then next thing you know, my partner, he was like, I think my son would like to go. His son is my age, so he's a lot older. But yeah, he said, I think my son would like to go. So I said, look, I'm gonna try to put it together to get this whole thing, and we did it. It was cool. I mean, they got what they wanted out of it because it was just a win-win, and we had a great time. Learned a whole lot, and it was interesting because I've been snorkeling at the pool and little,
Right.
But when you go out there, and then we got out in this little test area, and I was like, oh, this is not bad. I said, wow, this fish, it was pretty cool. Then he took us to the next area, and I just jumped right in, and it was like 30 or 40 feet. And I was like, oh.
I will not be doing that.
Yeah, I definitely would.
Yeah, I was looking around, and I was
love to
just
do
like, oh, it blew my mind. I mean, you start hearing Jaws music in your
Oh,
ears and all of that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
Is that new movie
Yeah.
Megalodon about to come out?
Yeah, exactly. You're thinking about my son. We had went this guy Rob, kid's 23, talking about bartering. He's
Right.
23 years. Well, he's probably about 25 now, but he followed in the footsteps of his dad, and he's into scuba diving. So he goes from one country and different places for periods of time,
Right.
and works at these different marine biology fields. So he left Andros and ended up going to Cuba because they had just opened it up
Right.
to allow transportation to Cuba. So he said, "Come on, y'all want to go out here with me? Because we're gonna look. Because Andros actually has the third largest barrier reef in the world. It's either the second or the third. So he said, y'all want to go out and see another view of the reef? So we were like, yeah, let's go out there. So we were going out there, and we were going way up, starting to look. And you know how you start looking back,
Right.
and the people are getting smaller and smaller. So, and then my son, he wanted to go with me. I think he was like 13 or 14 at the time, and
Right.
he said, I'm catching a cramp in my leg. And I was like, oh, man. And I looked over there at him like, man, I don't know what to tell you.
Hope you make it back.
I looked at him.
I'll always love you.
I said, that's a long way back, man. You sure you're going to be all right? I was like, we're in a group over here going back. We got, it's just me and you. So every maybe 10 feet or so, we would turn around and just start kicking and looking around just to make sure that nothing was right there. Oh, it was
That's funny.
it was hilarious.
I do have another question. So, is there anything that you can do legally to protect yourself when bartering? Do you bring in lawyers and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff?
if you end up having, like in that situation I was telling you about earlier, that's when you would get a lawyer. Just like in cash, if it starts going wrong, especially if you have, your paperwork. If you're gonna remodel my house, I want an agreement, I want
Right.
a writing proposal, anything that we would do if we were spending cash.
Right.
so that you still do have your recourse.
And that makes sense too, because even when you talk about like the billboard example, when you think about probably the hundreds of thousands of dollars involved in that deal, there's some paperwork involved in that deal.
Absolutely.
It's not just a handshake.
No,
you know,
not at all.
because the value is tremendous.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, now if we're doing some, like
Yeah.
one for one or apples for oranges or chickens for goats,
Yeah.
then you probably won't have any
Right.
paperwork with that. It'll just be, I guess that's like, what is that, small claims or something like
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but if you're doing anything of any value over, several $100s, whatever your tolerance level is,
Right.
your personal tolerance level, then you should have it in writing, just like anything
I'm
else.
giving you this and I expect this and this is how it's going to go down.
That's right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So for us being accountants, like how do we figure, like where would we start? So if
I get really nervous every time y'all say that. It's like for us being accountants,
I
like,
know. We're not coming. We're not turning you into anybody.
they're coming with that question.
Where would you suggest we got started? We've never bartered, so we think we have something of value.
Oh, absolutely.
The service that we provide. How would somebody like us, kind of get in the mix of this bartering based on, the services that we do?
What I would suggest, because you have a lot of other accounting companies that participate in bartering, but there's still plenty of space because businesses need accountants. And then, I don't know if I mentioned, there's roughly about, in the U.S. right now, I think the last number I looked at was like 625,000 businesses that participate in organized barter exchanges or retail barter exchanges.
Wow.
If you come in, you can kind of match up with your current clientele. So your fee structure is still your fee structure.
Right. Whatever we charge, we charge.
Whatever you charge, you charge.
Right.
And you come into that space if you want to belong to an organized network. Or if you wanted to do direct deals, it would still be whatever your fee structure is.
Right.
And if you have a list of things that you're interested in or things that you would like to accomplish or an expense sheet, or your purchase plan for the year, and starting to find a network or individuals that would be in line with what your 12-month plan is. That same way you would pretty much tell me, look at your expense sheet. And so that's kind of what's going to help you dictate what you're trading for as well. And if the network that you're considering joining is the right fit for you,
Okay.
based on what your potential needs may be.
What we want.
Right.
What we want or need.
Right. Because what you have is desirable.
Well, I learned a lot today.
Yeah, I mean,
Man.
just to think about it, it's a good way to enlarge the way you think. That there's a
Right.
lot of things we can do.
And you instantly become more wealthy when you start thinking about the excess and ideas and things. You just, I don't know how much, just in the example of the wood, if it's $200 worth of wood, that's just like $200 you just found that you can turn into something that you might need.
It's good.
I know David Thorne's over there nodding. I know he's got all kind of ideas. This is right up his alley. Well, again, we really appreciate you being a part of the Never Broke Nation podcast, helping us spread the message of make money, save money, and grow money. Like I said, I think we could do all of that with a little bartering here, a little trading going on.
Hey, I appreciate it.
Yeah, and so please, again, I want you to tell our listeners and our viewers how to find you. Where can they find you?
Barterscoop.com, BART, barterscoop.com. And
Picture that shirt.
or go to you can find us on iHeart, Barterscoop Insider Circle on iHeart, Spotify, iTunes, pretty much any place you listen to a podcast, you can find us. And Facebook.com/Barterscoop. It seems like a lot to say.
Right. But Barterscoop Twitter, Barterscoop on Instagram.
Correct. Yeah.
People can reach out to you and learn more about your services.
And if they have any questions or comments or whatever, info@barterscoop.com.
Okay. Nice. Thank you for coming to Never Broke Nation.
Yeah,
Hey, appreciate y'all having me. Thank you.